Really, it means this: you need to know who you are. And once you know who you are, then you can go ahead and be greatness for someone else. But first, I'm going to challenge you to be greatness for yourself and to live out the greatness that is already inside of you. You don't need to go find greatness in someone else. You don't need to go find greatness in some other place. The greatness is already in you, but do you know what that greatness is?
Unlocking unlimited potential means be unapologetically you. And when you're doing that and you're authentic in what you're doing, you're able to reach your full potential.
Selves and understand that everyone has a story and everyone has something to bring to the table. Our job is to help each other unlock what we have to bring into this world and to each other.
Unlocking unlimited potential means that I understand that I am enough and that I can and I will. And that is without regret, without anything, having any shame from the past.
Unlocking unlimited potential means empowering yourself to own your story. And by owning your story, you release that road to awesome leader that is inside of you.
So often we think like we limit ourselves to what we think is going to happen, and we don't open the doors to the possibility of what's next. What can we bring to the table? What can we bring to our classrooms? What can we bring to our school for our kids? How can we connect with the community? Unlocking limited potential means you got to understand that you can do whatever it is you set your mind to.
It's knowing who you are now and then doing anything necessary into becoming who you want to be.
Well, I want you to know that inside of you exists an unlimited potential, and I believe in it. And one reason that I believe in it is because inside of us is a potential that once we learn how to control it and harness it and live it with passion, that we'll be able to spread it through our schools and our classrooms and through our communities and into our world like wildfire. Join me on the journey as we explore together unlocking unlimited potential. And I can't wait to be on this journey with you.
Welcome to the Unlocking Unlimited Potential Stories show. Wow, so great to be here on this happy St. Patrick's Day, this beautiful Wednesday. So glad to have my man right here next door. He's over here, actually. I can't get there he is. Frank Rudnesky. Welcome to the show, Dr. Frank Rudnesky. How you doing, Frank?
Hey, what's happening, brother?
I'm good, man.
St. Patrick's Day. I'd like to send this out to my great-grandfather, Dennis McGuire. On my father's side, we have a lot going on ethnically, Irish being one of them. So happy St. Patty's Day.
Well, happy St. Patty's Day to him as well. Yeah, awesome. So, Frank, I know we were just talking a little bit on the pre-show. We were talking about your journey. I mean, we know so much about you already. You're a former principal. You're a speaker. You're a storyteller. You're even a magician. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more about that, as well as you're the author most recently of Fired Up Leadership, which was released by Codebreaker, and also 50 Great Things Leaders Do. And in addition to that, you are also a college professor. So tell us a little bit about your story, Frank. Where do we start off? How did you end up on this pathway to go from retired principal to professor to this person who's writing these awesome books that look like this one right here? Is that Bruce Springsteen? No. Is it?
I mean, I do it better. I could say he's one of the few people that are older than me that I come in contact with. So hopefully he'll be touring again next year, 2022. A lot of things being pushed back, but where do we start? First of all, I don't use the word retired. I use the word refired, because I am busier now than I've ever been in any point in my life. And I think a lot of that has to do with some of the toxic leadership that's out there. So if you're not telling your story, someone else is, and you may not like the ending. So where do I start? Whew, wow. Well, my first career choice out of the University of San Francisco was magic. And I performed on the street. I performed in a magic shop at Fisherman's Wharf because I needed a job. And that just turned my world into another one of those passionate parts of, if you want to do something, make it happen. You can do it. So go out and do it. Even right before my educational career started, around 1986, I was chained up, handcuffed, nailed in a box, and thrown in a river on purpose. So it was one of those things that I can do this. Took research, commitment, hard work, and made it happen. So my journey now continues towards that moving, shaking, and difference making of education and leadership. And that's how you and I got together.
Yeah, absolutely. The Codebreaker connection, of course, but also I've enjoyed following your journey. And I think, how did you get out of the box, man? That was thrown into the river.
Well, if you're passionate about something, you're going to put that extra work into it, especially when your life's on the line. So I did a lot of research on my favorite magician at the time, Harry Houdini. And it was at the time, you couldn't just do a Google search. Google was non-existent. You had to actually go into a library, sit down, do a card catalog search, and find information on Harry Houdini. So that's how I first decided. And Houdini was a very secretive guy. So there were 5 different ways that he did any particular illusion or escape trick. So I worked it out, did the best for me. He was also a very high-end athlete. So a lot of the things that he did took stamina, took strength, and took perseverance. So there was that component of it. The whole illusion took me about a year to perfect, including the physical fitness part of it, the research, the actual practice in my friend's pool, practicing holding my breath in the bathtub. I mean, it was a little crazy, but it was one of those end games that it was going to happen, so it happened.
Yeah, that's that commitment to learning about doing something that maybe others are saying you couldn't do, and how that led you on a path to become more fired up, right? That's kind of your story. And so tell us a little bit about fired up leadership, because you're kind of walking us right into it. So I think it's kind of like perfect time to talk a little bit about, where'd your idea for the, first of all, the title Fired Up Leadership, where did this all come from, and what goes on in this book? I know there's a nice story behind that.
Well, the segue Fired Up Leadership was from the first book, 50 Great Things Leaders Do. Let's Get Fired Up. So it was kind of a segue into, let's keep that type of passion going. And that fire part is all about the passion part. So the idea actually came about 20 years ago when I was a principal of a middle school. And we used to take groups of middle school students and train them to be leaders at 10 years old. So imagine that. Imagine if every 10-year-old had leadership training. And you and I know that leadership training is a whole ball of wax, meaning it's character development, meaning it's goal setting, meaning it's personal mission statement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just, okay, let's walk into the room, and when you leave, you're going to be a leader. But it takes years, and it takes people to look at themselves differently. So anyway, we would take these groups of students to what we called leadership exchanges. And one of my goals as a principal was to give every student a lesson during the course of the year. So I would give every 5th grader go into the classrooms, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th we had, and give them a leadership lesson. That was my goal. That was my commitment. So then we started having these exchanges where, why don't we train other schools? And as we were training, the one component I forgot, obviously, were the adults. I never realized how many adults never saw themselves as leaders, or had leadership opportunities. And I always took it for granted because when I walked into the classroom for the first time, I knew that there was this leadership. I may have not had the theory, I may not have had the experience, but what I did have was the common sense to know that you have to be a leader, or you're not doing this whole teacher thing or coaching thing, et cetera, et cetera. And that kind of filters down to the students and the other people in the building. I don't care if it's a custodian or a crossing guard or a bus driver, but we're all in this together. And everyone starts understanding that they're playing as big of a role in leadership as the principal or the superintendent. Now, granted, there's a chain of command, and some people are going to get more in trouble than others when decisions are made, but that's the mindset and the culture that we created. So this fired up leadership thing came out of workshops that we were doing and the leadership exchanges. And it had to be more methodical than the first book was 50 Great Things. You put those things in a jar, shake them up, pour them out on the table, and grab a handful. You're going to be a better person and a better leader if you do any of those. Where fired up leadership is more methodical, meaning you have these 4 domains that are driven in the middle by your passion, by your heart. And that, even though the other domains are feeding from each other, it's driven by you, by your heart, by your passion. And you start looking at yourself differently. People around you start looking at themselves differently because they've never been told that you have this, you can do this, this is your leadership opportunity. And you don't have to be, it's not just for the top few. You don't have to be just the smartest, just the best at a sport, just the most vocal. It's just, et cetera, et cetera. We can go all the way down the line. But there is opportunity for every one of us. And it really goes very well with unlocking your unlimited potential, because it crosses over a lot of the same vibes, a lot of the same theories. And even though we call it different things, the jargon is all there. And
Yeah.
when you see a person, whether it's your colleague or whether it's a student, taken to a place where they thought they would never be, and then a decade later they're saying, wait a minute, these are the same things I learned in middle school, then that's where you legitimize all this research and hard work and common sense and experience and knowledge that you all put together.
I absolutely agree. I mean, there's no age that, we really shouldn't be waiting to teach people about leadership when they're teenagers, when they're in high school, when they're adults. And as you're seeing, I think by starting them young, we are opening up the door early enough so that people can start to understand. Because I really think that a lot of kids at a young age, when you say the word leader to them, they think of that one person who talks a lot, or that one person who just takes control. And I think what you've been talking about really makes sense, because I know in my classroom I'm always talking about that stuff as well. And the idea of being a fired up leader really is about taking those self-limiting beliefs, pushing those to the side, and having that I can do attitude. And I appreciate that. I think that leads me into my next thing. I know part of what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks is I've been bringing in the people that are part of chapter 7 in my book. And in the book, Unlocking Unlimited Potential, there's a chapter titled When One Door Closes, a Virtual One Opens. And you submitted a piece for that, and you wrote a piece titled Moving Forward. And I will quote your first sentence, which I believe kind of says it perfectly, right? About this pandemic. We're 1 year after this pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic created a lot of unknowns, but it also allowed us the opportunity to do things differently. So what are we doing differently? What are you noticing that we're going to be doing differently in the future from your perspective, Frank?
Well, I mean, if you have that mindset that things never remain the same. I mean, change is the constant here. We never thought it was going to happen that quickly, because it usually doesn't. And education usually lags behind everything else because we just don't have the monetary resources. But the doors that opened up for us were, will we have known each other? You and I, will we be sitting here talking right now had it not been for the COVID? Probably, maybe, but probably not. So it opened up these windows of opportunity where people were able to share their stories. You know, I got to hear your story. I got to hear a plethora of other people's stories that I never would have heard before. And then you find these commonalities. And when you find these commonalities, you say, well wait a minute. How strong would it be if we all got together, or if we bring this person in or that person in, and you find like-minded people, but they may see things differently. So I call them the outliers, the heretics, and the disruptors. You know, we're disrupting the status quo, but for a positive ending. We're not disrupting for, negativity and to blow things up. But if we're blowing them up, it's going to be a positive result because we're learning from each other. And that's what a disruptor does. That's what, when you unlock your unlimited potential, that's what happens. Hey, granted, you're going to have walls, you're going to have barriers, but there are different ways to get around them, through them, over them that you may never have thought about before, where one person could lift you up and you're over that wall. Your strengths are eliminating other people's weaknesses, and vice versa. The same thing. Weaknesses are eliminated by you, and they're eliminating your weaknesses. And then you have that strong tower. And that strong tower, as we move forward, were these people that may never have had these leadership opportunities because they never saw themselves like that.
Yeah, it starts with the foundation, and we rise by lifting others. And I think a lot of times when we look at leadership, we sit there and we think that leadership is a one-person job. And it's, if you're a leader, that you have to have all the answers and you have to have all the things that need to be done in order to get from here to there. And actually, it's the exact opposite. In fact, if you're a leader and the people around you are empowered and they are all pitching in and raising each other up, then that's the place we want to get to, that transformational leadership side of things. And I so appreciate that. And you're right. Yeah, you know what, Frank? We probably wouldn't have met. I probably wouldn't have had the time to sit down or the moment to sit down and take a look in the mirror and say, man, I've been sitting around here for a couple of days now, a couple of weeks now. What am I going to do? I've had this book that I've been writing. I got to get this thing out there. And it wasn't until for me that I changed my words from, I am writing a book, to I am going to not just but I am writing a book, but now I am getting it published, and how I change that tone from one thing to the other. So that idea about rising by lifting up others is so key. And also the idea that, like, pushing aside those beliefs that are saying no, or those beliefs that are holding your back, or that imposter syndrome that we talk about all the time. I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like throwing ourselves in a box into a river and trying to get out.
Without the instructions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no game plan. There's no roadmap. There's no way to get through a pandemic. And I'd like to take a moment, and I think this is a great segue, because what we do in this show is we talk about a leader who's out there who is unlocking unlimited potential in all whom they serve. And one particular leader that I met also throughout this pandemic, but someone who's really been amazing at getting himself out there and leading others, is this guy right here, Roman Novak. Roman is the king of hope, in my opinion. He has the Build Hope EDU chat, which runs on Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. I was so lucky to be a part of it. He is just celebrating 2 years straight. And I actually texted him today and I said, hey, how many episodes is that? So he's coming up on his 105th Twitter chat called Build Hope EDU, which is amazing. You can follow him there at Novak Row. There it is, a W. It is Novak because there was no V in the Polish language. I learned that listening to one of his podcasts. But Roman is the man, and he is also coming up with a book from Codebreaker. And talk about a guy who is really rising by lifting up others. Really great guy.
Another guy that I never would have met or known about, possibly, if it wasn't for this COVID that has been going on now into its second year. But yeah, that guy, you talk about his Twitter chat on Sunday night. It's all about hope. Now, who doesn't want to talk about that and perspective from his point of view? And I think he's a girl dad too, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to recheck my notes, but I'm pretty sure that is an accurate statement as well. Since this is a girl dad operation we have going on right now. I know I have 3 girls. I know you have your 2. Amazing. It's amazing. We are rising up by lifting others, and they are awesome. Happy Women's Month, obviously, in March. It's a great month for the ladies. But yes, of course. And the other thing too about Roman, and I don't want to go too long on him because I could talk all day. The fact that he has done 105 episodes means that 105 straight Sundays in a row at 9 p.m. that he is running a Twitter chat, and he's planning the questions. He's out there. He runs most of it by himself. Sometimes he does have a host who joins in. I've hosted one before, but I mean, really, he's out there doing his thing. And I look forward to those chats because it's on the eve of Monday. So there's no better way to go to work on Monday than sitting down Sunday night and really getting pumped talking about building hope. Because really, if there's anything that I've needed during this time, it's hope, because it's been a wild, wild school year. And I know there's a lot of educators out there who are feeling that same thing as well.
And hopefully we're over the top now. I see a lot of schools are opening up, or at least attempting to open up. It seems like that vaccine is widespread. So we, that's what we have. Hey, if I got to get a booster shot every year, I get a flu shot every year anyway. But let's get back to perspective and perception is reality for a second. When I took my educational career in a different direction after the principalship, and I went around to schools all over North America, I never realized that how many people didn't see themselves as a leader. The number of teachers that came up to me and said, you know what, thank you for giving me that perspective, because I never saw myself when I looked in the mirror as a leader. And I had a different mindset. Anybody that walked through that building, you need to be a leader, because that's the only way we're getting this whole thing done. The first week I was a principal, a custodian came up to me and said, thank you for treating us as equals. Now, can you imagine that? That try to get anything done in any school without a custodial maintenance staff. It just doesn't happen. I mean, granted, I've chipped in and wiped off tables, set up chairs, cleaned up floors, but that custodial maintenance staff is vital. And when you walk into a school, you'll know right away how good they are immediately. As you go through that door, you'll see if that department is on cue or not.
Yeah, Frank, you talk a lot about unlocking unlimited potential in the leaders around you, in the people in the buildings, and the students that you work with in your grad classes. So the $1 million question is, what does unlocking unlimited potential mean to you? Can you finish my sentence? Unlocking unlimited potential means
looking in the mirror and seeing yourself differently. And I could go on and on and on and on, but it's hard enough to get a student to see who they are, but now try to get them to see who they can become. And that will make all the difference in the world. So that's unlocking and living. So once you unlock, you got to live it.
Absolutely. So Frank, you have so many great things going on. What's next? What's next for you? I know tonight you're going to be on the Empower Half Hour with our guys, Bradley, Skinner, and Darren Peppard, in your fastest half hour at 8 p.m. Eastern. So you're doing this twice today. I appreciate it, by the way. What's next for you?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day until after the Empower Half Hour, but I have some writing projects in the works, and I am ready to bust out and pick up that speaking career again. So, hey, anybody needs a keynote, professional development, a workshop, hit me up at Dr. Frank Rudd. And that'd be great when things do open up, if you and I can collaborate in person, on a stage, or in a workshop. How amazing would that be?
Absolutely. How about a beach, man? How about we just collaborate on a beach in New Jersey somewhere? I think we need that
I
first.
mean, we could do that. We could do that too. And that's where I think I do my best work, is speaking on the beach, because nobody's going anywhere.
I'm pretty sure I wrote half my book on a beach. So I totally agree with you, and I appreciate that. Well, listen, Frank, inspireleadership.com. That is your website. It is up there. I also want to let everybody know you're also speaking at the Codebreaker Power Summit. I am
Yes,
as well,
sir.
but you are speaking. What are you speaking about at the Codebreaker Power Summit?
The 5 domains of fired up leadership. And it will be guaranteed to get you fired up.
Absolutely. I love it. We got a couple other things that are happening. I already talked about your fastest half hour, which is happening tonight at 8 p.m. They have a special guest. Who's your special guest?
Vernon Wright. And for anybody on social media, Instagram or Twitter, you've seen Vern. He does a lot of different things. But the main thing that I know about him is leadership. He's committed to leadership for everybody, the same as we are.
Yes, absolutely. Vernon was also on the beginning of this video. I believe Vernon was on, I can't remember which number, but I want to say Vernon was episode 3. So you can check him out anytime. We also have the Codebreaker Leadership Lounge on Fridays at 10 a.m. Frank, I know you participate in them. Do you highly recommend it?
Yeah, you get to see people from all over the world. We have Georgina that comes in every Friday, and she's, I think, 6 hours at least, maybe 8 hours ahead of us, and she's there from Jordan. So
That's
we get
amazing.
a worldwide perspective. So stop into that. That's happening every Friday at 10.
Absolutely. We also just kicked off on Monday, the 7 p.m. Codebreaker Educator Lounge. And most importantly, you see the ticker at the bottom. Tickets are selling fast. Get your tickets now for the Codebreaker Power Summit. They're $20, but they are going to run out. They are not going to make it much further into April. I can tell right now. So please get a chance to check that out. You can head over to codebreakeredu.com for more information, to find out more about who's speaking. They released their speaker list. It's a great list. You can check out Codebreaker on all social medias, and you'll see announcements happening every day. We have a lot going on. That's great. I appreciate all of you. I want to wish everybody a happy St. Paddy's Day. And most importantly, I want you all to remember that the journey toward unlocking unlimited potential begins with us. And remember to educate with passion. I know you have your sign off, my man. I want to hear it.
Peace and love always win.
There it is. Stay fired up, everybody. Have an awesome day. I'll take care, and we will see you soon. See you next time.